If you're looking for information about the military, mainly if you're looking to know more about it, more than just what you hear on the TV or on the internet or people have talked to you about, if you're really looking to understand what the military experience is all about, and you want to get to know this, you want the truth, then you've come to the right place. Hi, my name is Gary, and I'm your host for Military Illumination, a podcast where we look at different aspects of the military and have a friendly conversation about what they're not telling you or what is not being put out there. It's very simple. Just to get a person to know and understand. There's a lot of good things about the military, and if you Google it, there's a lot of things that's going to get the pro side, but very rarely do you get the other side, and that's who we are and what we do. I just want to have a friendly conversation over a cup of coffee about the difference between which is better, a public defender or a military JAG officer who's defending a person, a military detail counsel or assigned counsel. Which is better? That's what we're going to talk about. And in the end, what we're hoping that you'll understand, in the end, what I'm hoping that you'll gather from it is that you will understand the complexities of both systems and why is one better than the other. It'll give you an understanding of what you're walking into if you decide to join the military. There's no surprises. The whole package, as far as the public defender and the detailed military counsel, the JAG system versus the civilian system, where you have a prosecutor and defense that's provided by the state. In military, is the same thing. You have the prosecutor and the defense attorney, which is provided by the military. If you ask me, I think there's a conflict of interest right out the gate. But we want to know which is better and if you should trust your military JAG officer. But before we get started, I just want to tell you a quick story. Maybe it'll shed some light on everything. I'm trying to be health conscious. I'm looking at the labels. I'm looking to cut out the middle person, meaning that if I can make it myself without buying the package, then I will. If I can, whether it's wine or beer or seasoning, whatever it is, I'm always looking to increase the purity of what I'm putting in my body. But anyway, so I'm scrolling along on the internet, looking on YouTube, and there pops up someone who's discussing about olive oil. They're telling you which is better and what you should be looking for and what you should avoid. Before that, I thought it was when it says olive oil, when it said, I assumed that it's good. It's good and healthy. It's not animal fat. It's a good product. But after listening to this content creator discuss the pros and cons of olive oil, I was shocked. What he did was he basically just identified what is good. Identified how you say it. He identified all the bad things that are in the olive oil that's not very good for you, right? And all the good things that are in the olive oils that is produced and is good for you. And simply just sharing with me things to look at and sharing with me things that the corporations that are making these different brands of olive oil are deceiving me and giving me less than what I thought I was going to get, and actually just taking my money. As a result of this article or this YouTube video, I realized what I needed to do. I didn't dump all the olive oil in my house. I kept it. But the next time I went to the store, I picked up the brand that he recommended and the one that he gave the reason for. I say all that, and I hope I didn't bore you, but this reason. All this podcast is about is illuminating the truth so that people can understand what to look for, and things that you can use to evaluate whether or not the military experience is a good experience or something that should be avoided. Am I biased at some point? I don't know. All I know is When I went in, I had this one mindset. When I served, I had the same mindset. But it was only after this run-in with the National Guards here in Washington and saw what they did and saw everything did I actually realize the truth. So that being said, is if I sound like I'm biased, I don't know. You got to be a judge of that. Do I want you to understand the differences? Yes. I want you to understand the differences. I want you to understand the hidden traps. I want you to understand the negative part of this thing, the military, so that you can make it, so a person can make an informed decision. That's simply what we're talking about. I'm going to mention some names only because these are the people that did this thing. Because what they did opened my eyes to an issue and a problem. And these people, they know what they did. I use their names because there is no secret. But what it does, it helps other people to learn from it. That being said, let's get started. Before, I think the three things that you should get away, your takeaway, the basic things is, first of all, understand the system. Okay? Understand the system. You got to understand the system. I keep saying that. Understand the system. Second thing is to understand the players within that system. Okay? And the third thing you got to understand is ask yourself, will my rights be honored under this system? That's the three things I want you to take away from this is the system, the players, and the amount of whether or not your rights will be taken care of. Okay. That being said, the Miranda warnings, everybody knows it. Everybody talks about it. It's on TV. You have a right to remain silent. If you say anything, I'm going to paraphrase. If you say anything, don't incriminate yourself. I can't say it. You have the right to remain silent. If you say anything, I don't know, can be held against you in a court of law. Okay, I got that part. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you at no cost. Okay, that's paraphrasing it. That's what it is. That there's a charge, you're suspected of something. If you got to remain silent. Anything you say can be held against you. And finally, if you can't afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Those are the things. The question for that means this: all justice isn't equal. Okay, it's not equal. While they provide you with someone to represent you, the question you guys should ask yourself is, what is the quality of that legal representation? What's the difference? What's better, a public defender or a military lawyer, defense lawyer? Which is better? Let's take a look at it really fast. The public defenders, they have a bad rap. Honestly, people say if you have to have a public defender, you might as well just go to jail. You might as well you're going to go to jail, right? They have public defenders that aren't really known to be stellar. And most of the time, they are just, if you look at them, public defenders are basically government employees, right? Who's looking for security or who's trying to just get their feet wet in law systems. Sometimes it's a good jumping off point with the public defenders. You're not going to get the best quality. I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but you're not going to get the best quality with the public defender. You're going to get probably that's going to be overworked, underappreciated, and you're probably going to get someone with not their legal skills. It probably is questionable. Okay, why? Because a top-notch legal representation you got to pay for. The good ones are willing to work on their own because they know they're good enough, and they're going to be able to earn a living. Whereas a public defender, they're basically essentially government employees. There's no incentive for them to excel. They're gonna get paid whether or not they defend you or not. They're not the top of the line. I honestly don't think they're the top of the line of anything. You gotta be careful what you get for free. So now I'm gonna look at the military, the JAG officer. That's a detailed legal counsel. It's the same thing. They're usually just cutting their teeth, just trying to get some experience underneath their belt, looking to get their student loans paid for, right? There's no incentive for them to do anything. They don't get paid anymore. They're just basically civil servants, government employees. And without that incentive of appreciation that results in the monetary factors, you're not going to get nothing. But now, with the public defender, if they screw up really bad, you have legal recourse against that person. You have a legal process that you can follow and get made whole again. Means that they're held accountable. In lack of a better term, they're held accountable through the court systems. You can sue them, okay? And let's say you're going to win, but you can sue them. On the flip side, with JAG, with the detailed counsel, the defense counselor, you can't sue them. There's no recourse. They have no incentive to do well. Okay, let that sink in. And why is that? This thing called the Feres Doctrine. The Feres Doctrine prohibits military personnel and their families or anyone connected to that person from suing the government. I talked about that before. There's no accountability in the military. They're not held accountable. And I don't care what anyone says, they're not. Those little rascals, they'll tell you. They'll throw the law at you. They'll just trust me. They're not. Look at the Feres Doctrine, F-E-R-E-S Doctrine. It's the way that the military and the civilian courts work. It's the doctrine. So right there is the first thing you got to understand, is that the counselor that's defending a person in the military isn't held accountable. They're not. I'm not gonna keep beating that. They're not. They're gonna say they are, but they're not. They're not. And I'm gonna show you a prime example about that. Within that system, I'm not gonna talk about the prosecutor right now. That's a whole different podcast, right? I'm just looking at the defense. Now, I don't care whether or not person committed a crime or not. People are gonna say if they didn't do anything, they wouldn't be in this predicament. That shows how naive you are when you think that, right? Because it's not about that. What it is about is, do you get representation that's based on the laws, regardless, okay? Everyone is presumed innocent, okay? So when you talk about that, as far as the legal representation, and in a lot of cases, a person doesn't have to do anything wrong. The case of my friend is so corrupt in the military. It's so corrupt. It is so corrupt. And people don't realize just how bad it is. It's just bad. That's what we look at when we say, so which is better, public defender versus the military judge, a military lawyer that's defending a person. You really can't go to anyone when you're in the military. You're going to go through the system is corrupt, right? You're done with. In a lot of cases, the JAG is just a disciplinary arm for the commanders, right? They're basically there to serve the commanders and the officers. And whatever way they can do it, however they can do it, regardless of whether they follow the law or not follow the law, is what happens. With the Feres Doctrine, it doesn't matter, okay? You're not getting the representation that you need. And I'm going to share with you when I say that. I think I'm talking too long on this one here. Public defender, you can sue them. You can hold them accountable. There's a process that can be followed. In the military, the process is blocked. What I mean by blocked is that there's no accountability. And when there's no accountability, then anything goes. Right? And I'm going to talk about that. You look at the court cases. So you make a choice. I talked about just briefly here about the rights warnings or Miranda warnings. Is rights warning in the military, is Miranda warnings the same thing in civilian? When the first time a person is suspected of a crime, that's when the rights have to be read to them. And then they can be questioned, or they can wait for their attorney. You can't ask the questions, or should I say here, can you ask the questions, then read them, and then read the Miranda warnings to them? Would that hold them in court? What would happen? To most people, a technicality would be the arresting officer, or in the military, the commanders not reading the rights of the person before asking the questions. So basically, that makes anything they said inadmissible, right? A lot of cases got thrown out because either they were coerced in the rights warnings or it was not given to them at all. Lawing 101, or should we say lawyering, being a lawyer 101, that's the most basic thing, isn't it? Did my client have their rights read before they said what they said? All right. There's a lot of different standards for that one. Another basic thing would be, did they read, should I say that, did a lawyer talk to the witnesses? Did they do their due diligence? Did they investigate? Did they talk to everyone? Did they talk to witnesses? They collaborate the stories. Did they do the legal work that the due process requires? What would you say about a lawyer that did not talk to witnesses that could have supported the alibi? Or what would you think about a lawyer that refused to acknowledge or ask whether or not their rights were read to them? Okay. What would you think about a lawyer that didn't talk to anyone and then tell their client 20 minutes before their initial hearing to suck it up? What would you think about a lawyer who would do something like that? Is that good lawyer? Is that good? Ineffective assistance of counsel, that's something that's on the books. I'm not going to remember the case read now, but I'm making this one kind of on the cuff, on the fly, 'cause I wanted to get off my chest. But there's a standard. There's a standard that must be followed. So what if your public defender never investigated, didn't acknowledge that the person's rights weren't read to them, even though they said it, or did not look at all the evidence? What would you say about a public defender who did that? Or worse yet, refuse to represent the client? Can a lawyer refuse to represent a client without being excused by the courts? Let that sink in. Okay. What if a military lawyer, can they not represent? Can they just walk away from a client, from a soldier that they're supposed to be defending? Can they collaborate with the prosecutor to deny the student due process rights for the soldier, sailor, airman, Marine? Can they? Do a military defense lawyer, are they required to investigate, to inquire, to ask about witness statements, or to look at the evidence against their client? Are they required to make legal defense in good faith? What would you say about a lawyer that didn't do any of those things? So we live in this country where it ain't the best, right? But it's pretty doggone good. I'll take it any day. But they provide you with a legal system that's open, except in the military. Military system isn't open. In civilian, it is open. It's transparent. Military, everything is hush-hush. Under the table, it's not. What do you say about that? About the military being able to deny the rights of the personnel? What is that? Would you say that was good or bad? If I'm going around in circles, forgive me. But let me share with you an incident that did happen. Okay. And this incident is not isolated. What I mean by that is it's a routine pattern within the legal system. Whether you look at it from the public defender or the military defense lawyers, it's both areas. Okay. So I'm not saying one's bad, one's good. What I'm saying is this: one is bad and one is good, not based on their lack of support, attention to the laws, but the participation in a system that allows bad legal advice, a system that supports the denial of rights to people. Do you find that in the military? You can Google it. Okay. And always put in ineffective system of counsel, Feres Doctrine. You get tons of stuff. All right. But I know it exists because I watched it. I watched it happen. I was there with my friend. And then from that and doing research over the last 25 years, I've seen plenty of incidents where what Captain Gregory Goodell did in 1998 was par for course. It's how the military does business. So let's talk about Mr. Goodell. He's a civilian now. He was a part-time National Guard person. He worked at a Seattle office law firm. He's a lawyer. Okay. I think he's out of state right now. But in 1998, people say, oh, that's a long time ago. Yes, it is a long time ago, maybe. But the things that took place in that time is still taking place today. Okay? Really is. The Feres Doctrine came about in 1953, but those issues that surrounds that doctrine is still happening today. So when I look at Gregory Goodell, okay, a lawyer, a detailed counsel assigned to represent this soldier, he initially wanted the soldier to go with the court-martial instead of the Article 15 that the soldier was being forced upon them. Okay, so his legal advice at the time, was in January when this thing started, was to have the case held or heard through a court-martial, because there wasn't enough information, evidence to support even in Article 15, which is non-judicial. Why does that make a difference? Because a court-martial affords legal rights. A Article 15 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice does not. It's non-judicial punishment. It's the word of the commander. While as a court-martial hearing, whether it's summary or general, it does afford a person there's a legal standard, rights that has to be followed. So my friend said that was the best thing. That was in September, that was in January, March or whatever, right? That means that legal rights was there, the evidence. That means that the witnesses have to be talked with. That means that they would have to just everything, full blown. Here it is. All right, so let's fast forward it. August, there was a hearing. The soldier did not meet with Goodell. He did not meet with the soldier, even the soldier asked to meet. But what he did do is he met with the prosecutor. He met with Lieutenant Colonel Brett Doherty. He met with the major that was handling it. Okay. He met with everybody, with Donald Bennett of the prosecutor. He met with everyone. And in the end, William Palmer Shaw, that's the major, Palmer Shaw. In the end, so the soldier goes into the conference room, wherever it was at, not knowing what was going on, not knowing anything, and was asked whether they wanted a summary court-martial or whatever. She looked, let me back up here. Before that, the soldier, they did meet with Goodell. The soldier talked about the displeasure with everything that's happened, not knowing. And Goodell's legal advice at that time was to suck it up. That's what he said. Suck it up. Later on, through inner office memos, what had happened that day behind closed doors was that they wanted to move. They were looking to bring more charges, right? So basically, they just were stalling till those things can be wrapped up. Here's what happened. The soldiers' rights were never read to them. Even though Brett Doherty, through his court documents and things in his statements, acknowledged that he was suspicious, acknowledged that something was wrong, acknowledged that he knew he felt the soldier had done something wrong, acknowledged it. But all he did was question, never read the rights to that person, never read the rights person. The rights were read to that person after the end of close of business, around 4:30. That person was called into William Palmer Shaw's office, and at that time, he read the rights to this person. Now, think about that. He read the rights to this person, and no questions were asked. The rights were read to the person after the fact, almost 3 hours after the fact, and no questions was asked. When the soldier asked if they were in trouble, they said, no, we just wanted to just be upfront. He played it off. That's first thing. This is knowledge that the soldier told Gregory Goodell, and he never brought it up. He never did. He never did. Everything that all those charges should have been dropped for that reason. It shouldn't have even gone. The minute it hit the court-martial stage, all that should have been gone. Would you agree with that? Second thing was from January, when the incident happened, all the way into August, Goodell never talked to any of the witnesses. He never talked to the one person that said, this person did not do this thing. This person did not know what I had did. The actual person who actually did the offense was said that. That person had lied to Feres Doctrine. He had lied to William Shaw. He had lied to everyone. He had lied to that soldier. And that soldier, thinking he was the truth, should share what they had heard. Based on that, the soldier was court-martialed. Now let that sink in. But Gregory Goodell never talked to anyone. He never did. He never did. He never looked at the evidence that they were using against them, even though all the evidence that they were using to bring charges on the soldier was the evidence found by the other soldier who had did the offense. The other soldier lied until the next day when William Shaw said, there's nothing going to happen to you. We just want to know where this equipment was at. And the equipment they were looking for really was something that soldier had. He's a pack rat, okay? He had stored some equipment that he's a supply sergeant, in the boiler room of the building that the other supply sergeant was in. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. The boiler room, these are all military World War II barracks units here. There's a boiler room. The only person who had the key was the headquarters, and this other person who did the offense stored all this stuff in the boiler room, and it was found through a routine inspection of the boiler room. It just happened to find it. That soldier moved all that stuff out because when it was discovered, the soldier that was building that it was in said, you need to get that stuff out of my building. He moved all the stuff to two different places, okay? 2 different places, until everybody, including the soldier that got court-martialed, that he did that. But Goodell never mentioned it. He never investigated. He never looked at anything. There's a blind mouse. Anybody will be able to tell. I'm digressing, okay? So, now you're probably saying, why would a person do this? You're saying, what was his incentive? William Palmer Shaw, Major Shaw, Feres Doctrine, he's since retired. He was actually the adjutant general of the National Guard when he retired, was retaliating against the soldier. Anything and whatever they can do to flip it around is what they did. So those are you people who talk about if a person didn't do anything wrong, they had nothing to worry about. This is just a prime example of retaliation in action. Okay? Let's just say, you can say maybe a young lady was sexually assaulted by her commander. She goes to, and she brings up charges. She goes to the IG. She tells people, gets the officer in trouble. They're going to be retaliated against. Those are the kind of things we're talking about here. So those are things that Goodell did, right? And there's a legal standard for ineffective assistance counsel. Do you think he was effective? Do you think he did anything wrong? If a public defender did all, that case would be thrown out on appeal. Yes, that's the process I'm talking about. But in the military, whether you're National Guard or Reserves or active Army, that doesn't happen. They're going to get that person on something. What I mean is this. They're not going to just walk away. A lot of cases that I looked at was they may have dropped the charges on this thing, but they got so many other things small enough that they can still charge a person. So you're not getting out scot-free. That's the system. That's a system I'm telling you about. In the civilian, you have that due process. In the military, you don't. And don't let them lie to you. They're going to say they do. Please, they don't. They're just lying packs of shit. I shouldn't have cussed. I'm sorry. And why I say that? Just look at the Supreme Court cases. Look at the military Court of Appeals cases. Look at all these cases in the civilian court systems, right? And those are just the cases that made it that far. Because most of the time they're officers and they have money to hire attorneys to get it that far. So that's what Gregory Goodell did. Would you say he was a good attorney? But I think the one thing that by the way, this is just at the tip of the iceberg. I would say the big one would be this. He refused to represent the soldier. When the soldier asked for him to be replaced, the soldier sent Goodell a letter saying, I want someone with more experience. That was after the August incident. After the August incident. He refused to work. He sent a letter to the soldier and said, I am no longer your attorney. Now, if you understand about legal stuff, when you're assigned an attorney, because that's what the Miranda warnings provide for you, or the military law rights warning provides for you, you were supposed to have one. He refused to work to represent her, and he didn't. This person had to go to another hearing without a military attorney. And Lieutenant Colonel Dwight Williams was the military judge. He did not enforce that. He let it go. Once again, as a judge, he refused to compel Gregory Goodell to represent the soldier. He refused. He did not do it. He did not make sure that soldier had representation. Why? That's the game they're playing. That's what they just put you. They know they can't do it legally, so they put you out there without a defense attorney and then find you guilty. And they can do that because it's all about paper and ink. They can do it. That's the Feres Doctrine. Okay, Feres Doctrine. That soldier could not. They were done. They couldn't sue. And there's more to that. I'll let you know. I'll tell you. They can't sue. So when we look at the military and we're looking at the defense counsel, ask yourself this: would you be better off with a public defender rather than a military legal counsel? If you say yes, then therefore, why are you joining the military? And if you're in the military, understand this: you're screwed. Unless you can pay a good civilian attorney that's not prior JAG. Don't be hiring these ex-JAG officers, right? Because once they're infected, they're always going to be infected. They don't hire. I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says. Don't hire an ex-JAG officer to represent you. I don't care. You're screwed. Birds of a feather flock together. Once an officer in JAG, always an officer in JAG, right? You're screwed. All you're going to be doing is giving them money. So what is it that you can do? I don't know. If you're going to the military for the benefits, find a better way. If you're going in to serve, then understand what you're up against. The laws provide for things like attorneys. The laws and legal system provides for protection. But it's when those protections are violated and there's no recourse of action is an issue. In the military, there isn't a recourse. It's a closed system. There's nobody can help you. A side note, the soldier went to Patty Murray's office seeking for help. They didn't get it. They tried, but they couldn't even compel the National Guard, the Washington Military Department, to assign that soldier a defense counsel. As a result, they had to go try with that one. They lost their retirement benefits. They're serving, right now, the person's got PTSD out the max. And that was 18 good years of serving her country of serving in their country, his country, right? Their country. And in the end, because Brett Dockery and Wilmer Palmer Shaw wanted to retaliate against a soldier, they lost their retirement. But the benefit of it is that someone who cares witnessed it. I wouldn't have fought as much with my friend. I wouldn't have supported my friend to the level that I did. I wouldn't have taken the most interest. But that was my degrees in law as paralegal. So that was like in my wheelhouse. I only did it because I believed in the system at the time and didn't think anything like this would ever happen, could happen. I believed in the country. I believed in the military. I believed in the judicial process. I believed. I kept pushing because I felt that sooner or later, justice will be served. That's why I kept pushing. That's why I kept encouraging my friend. That's why 25 years later, I'm on this podcast. But what I realized is that when you're dealing with the military, and our government, that's not the case. The justice is just paper. It's mockery of justice because there's no accountability. Congress made that happen by barring military personnel and their families from bringing suit on the government. So the two systems we talked about was the civilian system of legal system, and then you got the JAG system, Judge Advocate General system. Both of them are corrupt. Both of them are not perfect. Both of them have a facade of justice. Civilians, there's due process that's transparent. It's transparent, okay? But military is not transparent. Just based on the nature, they have autonomy. That's what Leggewood said at a time when, back in 1998, to two responses to the investigation by Patty Murray's, is that we have autonomy to self-govern, stay out of our business. Let that sink in. Whatever you want to see, right? And if you're thinking about it, and I guess if you're weighing your options, understand that they have autonomy. That is transparent, is not transparent. Injustice is allowed to happen because that's just the way it is. And the Feres Doctrine is the component that ensures that happens. What else? What is next? I guess what's next is I'm going to be talking more about this. I'm going to be talking about some court cases down the road. I'm going to come revisit this whole situation again with Gregory Goodell, right? But in a nutshell, that's what I want you to understand is this, as the systems and how it impacts your legal rights. Thank you for making it this far. Thank you for listening. Thanks for supporting me. And for all you haters, okay, whatever. Am I anti-military? I don't know. You be the judge of that. But what I am is pro-facts, is pro-action, is getting all the information before you make a decision. That's what I'm about. My coffee is still here. Man, you ever talk so much and I forgot to drink it. But I like drinking my decaf coffee. Anyways, next time, hopefully you'll listen again, come back, share with anyone, test out what I say, right? Don't believe me, test it out. There's plenty of things out there. Most of it is pro-military. There's a lot of it out there you need to pay attention to that's showing the other side. All right? Until next time, keep the coffee hot, keep your ears open, keep asking questions. Thank you very much.